Hello everybody. One day a few years ago, a Belgian farmer was ploughing his fields and there was a huge great stone in the way. So he got out of his tractor, picked up this 330-pound stone and moved it 7.5 feet. Well, apparently this was more significant than it might otherwise appear, because it was discovered recently by the mayor of the local town that moving this stone had in fact changed the boundary between Belgium and France. The stone was part of a series that had been laid after an 1820 treaty between the two countries, which outlined where the boundary should run. And by moving the stone, he changed the boundary by 7.5 feet. The poor farmer was told he would face no legal consequences, provided he moved the stone back again. Made me think about boundaries, which are important in all our lives, and we tend to create boundaries for ourselves in the way we live. We have a privacy boundary, both in terms of things like the internet, but also in terms of personal communication. How much we're prepared to let people cross that boundary into our private lives. We have a time boundary. You know, how much of our time are we prepared to allow other people to intrude upon, if that's how it feels. And often we will say to each other, "You've no boundaries," meaning you don't say no often enough. You should say, no, you're not going to do something, so that you preserve that boundary of time. Or there's the boundary of space in our homes, or in our room within our homes. We have a space which we see as ours. And when people come into it, they are coming across the boundary, and hopefully by our invitation. Or there's the boundary that we put around our ability to care for others and to give energy to looking after others, as opposed to looking after ourselves. We often have a point at which we need to stop caring for others and start caring for ourselves, and sometimes we don't get that boundary right. We either care for ourselves too much or care for other people too much, to our detriment. So boundaries are really important, and I think it's worth stopping to think today perhaps what boundaries we put around ourselves in these and no doubt other ways, and whether they are sometimes moved, not perhaps by our choice, and what we can do about that. But I think one of the things that happens with our boundaries is that if we love people, if people are close to us, we're much more lenient about them crossing our boundaries. Indeed, our boundaries with them are likely to be much less clearly defined. We're much more likely to be open with our time, with our space, with our energy, with our privacy, with people that we love. And it struck me that for Christians, one of the ways of describing how we react to Jesus is that we allow Jesus to break through all the boundaries of our lives. We allow Jesus to become not an intruder in any sense, but someone who comes way across those boundaries, right into the heart of who we are, and helps us to live, to love, guides us and supports and strengthens us. We try, and of course we can't always do it, not to put up any boundaries against the influence of Jesus in our lives. So I'm going to try and make sure that I don't do that today, to try and observe myself and see if there are any boundaries I'm putting up against the Spirit's influence in my life. And while I do that, just check generally that my boundaries are where I really want them to be.